Traditional human resources software relies on a specific architectural assumption: a static worker operating in a single, fixed location, receiving a predictable biweekly salary. This diagram illustrates what happens when that static model collides with a live entertainment tour. A single production crew member might cross 5 state lines in a 7-day period. As the worker moves, the rapid geographic shifting fractures a single pay period. Every time the tour crosses a border, the worker generates a new, localized tax liability based on the exact hours worked in that specific jurisdiction. A traditional payroll database cannot process this level of geographic volatility. The system requires an architecture built specifically for transient labor. Production companies operate under a paradox. They act as massive, multi-million-dollar employers, but legally, many exist as ephemeral entities, incorporated exclusively for the duration of a single tour. Historically, the industry bypassed complex tax routing by classifying touring crews as 1099 independent contractors, paying them flat daily rates to avoid managing multi-state withholdings. UPP solves this by architecting a specialized enterprise resource planning system that dynamically allocates multi-state W-2 taxes and dual-track overtime without relying on standard timesheets. The software operates as a compliance translation layer. It takes the fragmented reality of touring labor and standardizes it, protecting these ephemeral employers from severe misclassification penalties. Under federal law, every new production or tour is classified as a new employment event, requiring the worker to complete the onboarding process. In practice, highly skilled crew members are continuously rehired for multiple tours by the exact same production companies, creating massive, redundant administrative friction. UPP deploys a stateless worker identity concept to resolve this. By utilizing I-9 Section 3 re-verification rules, the system legally bypasses redundant paperwork for any crew member rehired within a 3-year window. This flowchart shows the underlying data mechanism. The system links a worker's ephemeral employment records to a single persistent profile using a SHA-256 hash. A SHA-256 hash is a cryptographic algorithm that converts sensitive data, like a social security number, into a fixed-size, secure digital fingerprint. This persistent profile automatically manages complex edge cases. For non-resident aliens, the profile stores their W-8 BEN forms to automatically apply international tax treaties. A W-8 BEN is a form used by foreign individuals to claim a reduced rate of withholding, overriding the default 30% federal tax penalty. By unifying identity through cryptographic hashing, the architecture eliminates the repetitive paperwork of live events while maintaining mathematically verifiable federal I-9 compliance. For non-union crews, the UPP Tours platform completely eliminates timesheets. To generate a payroll entry, it requires 4 minimal inputs: the talent, the work date, the location, and the daily rate. This diagram shows the architectural breakthrough making timesheet-less payroll possible: the work locations JSON array. A JSON array is a data structure used in programming to store multiple ordered values or objects within a single variable. The array stores multiple individual workdays as distinct localized objects. Notice how the individual earnings allocated amounts aggregate into a single gross pay figure, while the geographic location data remains isolated for each specific day. The Unified Payroll Calculation Service routes these geographically tagged earnings to the Vertex API. The Vertex API is a third-party enterprise tax engine that calculates exact jurisdiction-specific withholding rates based on the provided coordinates. As the tour physically moves across the country, this specific data structure converts a broad, flat daily rate into granular, legally compliant tax withholdings at the state and local levels. To avoid massive labor misclassification penalties, the entertainment industry is actively forcing a shift from 1099 contractors to W-2 employees. This diagram illustrates the immediate mathematical requirement of that shift. The system must convert a negotiated flat daily rate into a compliant hourly equivalent for W-2 processing. The daily overtime engine takes this calculated hourly rate and applies standard tiers. The worker receives their base rate for the first 8 hours, 1.5 times the rate for overtime up to 12 hours, and double time beyond that. To manage state-by-state discrepancies, The engine incorporates a jurisdiction-aware California auto-detect logic node. If a single workday is tagged with a California location, the system automatically triggers state-mandated daily overtime rules. This forceful bypass overrides any user-configured toggles, locking the overtime multiplier on. By hard-coding multi-state jurisdictional logic directly beneath the user interface, the overtime rules engine protects production companies from severe labor law violations. There is one strict exception to the daily overtime engine: union-classified crew members. To prevent contract violations, union workers are entirely locked out of the flat daily rate system. This diagram outlines the diverging logic path. Union workers are routed through a strict timesheet rule set governed by specific collective bargaining agreements. A collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, is a legally binding contract between an employer and a union that dictates specific working conditions and pay structures. The engine must process escalating union penalties automatically. This includes golden hours multipliers reaching 4 times the base rate, turnaround rest violations, and tiered flat fee penalties for delayed meal breaks. This dual-track architecture is mandatory for live events. Processing non-union flat rates alongside the rigid legal constraints of organized labor within a single payroll run requires 2 distinct mathematical engines. The execution phase is triggered by a core processing request sent to the API. This diagram maps the strict state machine sequence governing a payroll run. The data moves from pending to processing, then to calculated, and finally to approved. Before taxes are calculated, step 0 of the pipeline executes the cash advance auto-deduction loop. Cash advances execute as post-tax deductions and operate under strict FIFO ordering. FIFO, or first in, first out, is a data processing method where the oldest pending records are resolved before newer ones. To protect the financial data, the pipeline uses an idempotency guard. Idempotency is a property in computer science guaranteeing that an operation can be executed multiple times without changing the final result. If a user recalculates the payroll run, the system physically cannot deduct the same advance twice. If the external tax recalculations or ACH batching processes fail, the error recovery architecture automatically rolls the database back to the calculated state. This strict pipeline design guarantees absolute data integrity, preventing duplicate financial transactions in a highly volatile processing environment. Before final approval is granted, a Gemini AI analysis service automatically scans the processed run. The AI is trained to detect specific anomalies. It flags corporate loan-out entities requiring special tax treatment, identifies foreign worker tax requirements, and isolates abnormal overtime spikes for individual workers. Once verified, the system's final output is an automated summary line item invoice generated via the Stripe API. The final invoice is broken down into industry-standard components: crew labor, employer taxes, workers' compensation premiums, and platform fees. UPP operates as a structural translation layer. It converts the chaotic, multi-jurisdictional reality of live touring labor into strictly typed, legally verified financial execution.